Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Streaming Alchemy. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're going to take a look at a new product that we've launched on the neural net side of the house called LiveToAirZ. And LiveToAirZ will let you connect Zoom to your professional video productions with a lot of integration, both for video and audio outs, as well as interactions with the guest. But before we get to that, I just want to invite everybody, if you have any comments, have any questions, just post them in the comment section below, and we'll get to them here live. Also, if you'd like to join us on the show, we do have a link here on the screen, as well as in the show notes. So feel free to connect and join us that way as well. So let me get started here. And I think the best place to begin is just giving you a quick view of what this actually would look like. So let me just pop out and show you a screen here. So this is actually just an output from our LiveToAirZ combined with a guest coming, a host in vMix. And what I'm able to do in LiveToAirZ is I can just take and assign these guests. I have several guests that are in this virtual meeting here. I can assign them. So not only do we get to see the guest, but we're pulling their guest metadata, and that's coming up as the lower third that's coming out of vMix. I could actually take and just replace that guest in that first channel. Say I put the wrong guest in the wrong channel, and it will go and make the adjustments. And then I can just place the guest, the second guest in the second channel, and do this. And this is all just through a very simple interface, which we'll dive into on the show. The other thing I'm able to do, so let me sort of just swing over here. I'm going to add a comment for this guest here. So say somebody wanted to post something in the chat. I'm going to sit here and say, hello, everyone. So one of these guests will have posted this. I now have the ability to also go in, and let me sort of just swing this over here, and I'm going to set this as an active message. Now I could actually on here go up and just post the messages that people, display the messages the lower third that people show in the production. So if they contribute and they want to ask questions, you have that. You can see we're also pulling in the name of the individual. So that information is all coming out. So we are doing a lot with not just sending out audio and video feeds, but also working with the guest. And that hopefully will give you a sense of some of the stuff that I will be showing you here today. So let's see, before we do that, I think we have a number of people that have questions and comments. So why don't we go through that? So we have you demand. Always good to see you. Thank you for joining. So David, good to see you. Thank you. Randall, always good. Randall's doing some interesting things in the arts field. And definitely, if you haven't checked out some of the stuff that Randall's done, look him up and take a look. He's really pushing some boundaries there. So Guy, good to see you. Thank you. Mark from Manhattan Beach Studios. Yes, thank you, Mark, for joining. I appreciate it. So follow your bliss. That sounds like good advice. So, hi, thank you for joining us. So Samuel, thank you. Great to have you here. Okay, so let me start by jumping into the LiveToAirZ interface, and then we'll go through, sort of breaking it down into the different things that you can see. So let me go here. So let me take the message off the bottom here. Okay, so this is LiveToAirZ, and what you see here is the sort of baseline interface that you have. And I'm going to just sort of pull these guests out of here so you can see this all in sort of, this would be like what you'd see when guests are first joining. So in this left-hand column, we have all of the participants in a meeting. It doesn't have to be people that are on air or assigned to channels. This is everybody that's in the meeting. So you have the ability to be selective about who you want to bring in and who's going to be on air. And you also have the ability, if you can see from right up here, to filter people based on different things that they may have in reactions. So you can have people raise their hand, and when people raise their hand, so let's, for instance, I'm going to have, I think this is Sean here, going to have them raise their hand here. So you can see now that I have a little indicator that Sean had his hand raised, but I can also just go and say, just show me the people that have their hand raised. And now you only see those people with a hand raised. And this would also work for any other of the reactions that are available inside of Zoom. So this gives you a great way, not just to sort of search through and sort guests, but you can find people that you want to interact with, either through selection, you know, I raise my hand, or also through reactions. If somebody does a thumbs up or a hearts or a claps, you can use those as indicators to go back and forth with your audience, with your participants in the Zoom meeting, and figure out who you'd want to then go and assign to channels. So if I turn hand raise off here, you now see everybody back. The other elements that are here are these channels, and we'll talk about, you know, how you can set them up, but I can take anybody, and by selecting them, I can just then go and assign them to a channel. So that's all easy to do. But before we dig into the operational side of this, let me sort of work back through how this gets set up and how you'd integrate, and then we'll actually sort of demo out each one of the functional components more directly. So across the top here, you have sort of basic menu buttons, and we can do things we have for media, which lets you set up all your IO. You have the meeting, which lets you sort of paste the invite for the meeting in it. You have a whole interface for managing messages that your community, you know, the people participating in the meeting could be sending. And then you again have this main interface. So let's start with the media. That's probably a good place, which really talks about a lot of the setup that goes behind here. So inside the product, we don't have a limitation on the number of channels. I can add or remove channels. So if I only wanted to have 4 channels, you know, I could just delete channels. I wanted for this show to have more, I could add a couple of additional channels. There's no limitation on how many channels you can have in the product. The limitation is going to be for whatever your Zoom account will let you bring down. You have from Zoom different bandwidth constraints that they may put on different accounts, different resolution constraints. And that's something where if you have the capabilities provided by Zoom, we will respect that and pass that through. If you can do, you know, 10 people at 1080, we'll do that, you know. So it's not something that we would ever do a limitation on. In this channel, for each one of these channels, we will let you output NDI, both for video and for audio. You can turn that off if you don't need it. You can also go, so if you had deck link or other types of output devices, you could go and select any supported devices here. I think deck link is the main one that we are supporting, and that would give you another way to do a video out. You also have a secondary audio out. So that could be embedded SDI. So if you did SDI, you can do embedded SDI. That could be Dante. You can do that as, you know, an ASIO device, WDM device. So if it's available, it can be supported here. We also let you select for each channel the resolution of the video that you want to output for that. So typically you'd probably just keep it at the maximum, but if there were reasons you had for lowering it, you can do all of that here and just set it for each channel that you want. One of the other things that we added here, which we realize is very important in a production space, especially if you're dealing with like audience engagement style productions, is we give you a selected preview. And what that does is whatever guest you click on, if you remember on the main screen, we had all of the meeting participants in the left-hand column. If I click on one of those, this is a channel that will automatically send their audio and video out. So if you wanted to preview people before you brought them into a channel permanently to talk and engage, this would be how you do that. You'd be able to set this up as part of your preview and view that. And with that preview, we are actually passing along all the metadata as well. So you will be able to say, I know the person's name. If there's any other details that you want, if they had different reactions, you can see all that. And you could build that into your production as part of what you want to do. We also give you the ability to set up a mix audio, which is the audio from all of the guests combined into a single output feed. And we also just have an audio monitor, which can be used on the studio side if you needed to have something where you just want to listen to everything as a separate studio-based audio feed, sort of not necessarily meant for your production feed. So we give you that, and that's sort of your setup in the media side. But one of the other key things that we have here that we sort of brought over from our core Live-to-Air product is the ability to have on-air and off-air modes. So in Zoom, you only can return one audio and video feed. That's everybody gets that same audio and video. But what we did in LiveToAirZ here is that we gave you the ability to say, I want LiveToAirZ to be in off-air mode, meaning no audio or video gets sent to the studio, and I want to send the off-air video and audio feed back to Zoom, which means you could have a producer sit on and talk to everybody in the Zoom meeting prior to going live. And then what you can do is say, when I go to on-air mode in LiveToAirZ, it will now send out all the audio and video from each guest that's assigned to a channel, and it will return an audio and video, a different audio and video potentially feed back to the guest based on what you said here for the live show. And that gives you this very clear demarc where when everybody's off air, nothing goes out, nothing leaks into your live stream, into your live production. But when they're on air, it's very clear, that they're on air and they get a different audio and video return to them. So that's the core setup here for how you do everything on the media side. The meeting side is pretty straightforward. When you create a Zoom meeting, you can set it up with just an invite link that you'd send to all the potential participants. That's exactly what you would just paste in here. If we weren't connected to a meeting, this would be, say, join meeting. Now it just says leave meeting. But when LiveToAirZ connects, it can connect as just a participant in the meeting. So you don't have to have somebody else's Zoom credentials if you're working with. So if you're working with a corporate client, they can log in and set up the meeting. All they have to do is to actually send you an invite to that meeting, and then LiveToAirZ can join. So that should make things, simpler and work in a lot more cases than you would normally. The next thing that we were just talking about is messages. And we did a lot with messages here that we think can be very helpful. So first, you can actually go in and filter messages. So if I'm looking for specific terms, if I tell everybody, just do #? If you have a question, and I can now filter all the questions that come into a show. So you can do things like that. So over here, if I select this, I actually will not just only see this, but I can add it to a queue. So now, as I go through these messages, I can find the ones that seem most interesting and just start to queue them up. If I have this message here, I could go in and select. Now I only have the one message here, but if I had multiples, I could have other messages here. I could select. Not only can I queue these messages up, but say somebody had a spelling mistake or put something that was inappropriate. I can actually go in and, make a modification to this, say, how are you? And then I can just turn around and say, update that message. Now that stays there. And if I were to set that new update as the active message, if I call this up here, you can now see that the changes I made were there. And this means that if you had something that was going back and forth between multiple points of view, you could sort of queue different messages up here and switch between them if people are sort of going there to talk about something that was mentioned in a specific question or a specific message. So it not only gives you access to these messages, but it gives you a framework now where you can actually start to manipulate them. So hopefully that gives you a good view of sort of the structural pieces that are sitting here for LiveToAirZ. But if we go to the interface, there are a few things. Let me sort of pull this off here. A few things I do want to highlight. I mentioned that we have on-air and off-air modes here. So let me just show you. I'm going to show you what a guest would see. So let me sort of pull this up. So this is the guest interface. If I go off-air, you can see now that this was the switch we talked about. So this would be a producer that could be talking to everybody. And then when we switch and go on air, you can now see this is the return video that has sort of the host that's talking. So that's part of what we had with the on air and off air. And if sort of, let me sort of show this over here. You can see this is exactly where it's happening. When I click off air, you go there. And when I click on air, you go there. And that's that transition. I do have the ability to, if I have preview, and we talked about that. So let me sort of show you the filter preview here. Whichever guest I have selected is actually the guest that's put in preview. So that's what I'm showing you here. Just by clicking on a guest, that creates the preview. If I didn't want to show that, I can click on the clear preview, and that will take that guest sort of out of preview. That can be very useful if you're using preview not to sort of screen guests that you want to put into one of the channels, but if you are actually using it maybe to pop somebody on that wants to ask a question and pull them off, something like that. You could use that as well because it's sending audio and video out. So if you use that channel for that, this would be that sort of thing where I go in, select somebody, they ask their question, I could clear them. We are also in this writing all the metadata about like the states of the channels, what's in preview. So you could do scripting that would sit there and go, as soon as I pop somebody into preview or to a specific channel, I would be able to react to that, sort of slide this over, put that other guest up. And when they leave that channel, I would be able to slide back. So because not only are we like sort of posting the feeds going into it, but we are also tracking the metadata, you now have a lot of flexibility external to LiveToAirZ to do some really creative things here. So I did talk about the filtering here and how we can sort of set this up. We showed everything about sort of doing replacements. So the last thing I really want to talk about is sort of situational awareness for the guest. One of the things, if I go over and let me sort of show the LiveToAirZ UI again here. If you look over here on this side, every time I switch the system on and off air, LiveToAirZ is automatically generating a message that goes out to everybody to say, I switched everybody on air, we switched everybody off air. I do, as the host, have the ability to just enter messages, and I can send that message, again, to everybody, but I could also go and just pick somebody individually that I want to send the message to. So we're using the messaging system inside of Zoom as a situational awareness tool as well. So they'll get these types of messages coming in when they go on and off air. Not only that, but in certain situations, if I need people to mute their microphone, like say somebody is talking and I'm not the owner of the meeting, so in LiveToAirZ, unless I'm promoted to a co-host. If I am, then I can just click on. Let me just put somebody in here in the channel so it lights up a bit. I could go and click on the mute, and what this will do is it will send a message. If you look right here, don't know if you can see it, but it says the LiveToAirZ operator is requesting that you mute your microphone. So this frees the operator up from having to do like these individual messages out to people. We do these automatically for you. So if I can't mute you or unmute you, then that is actually just going to be handled through messaging on an automated basis. And so that can be very, very efficient workflow-wise for getting people to sort of cooperate with what they're hearing back and forth. So the other thing is, and just sort of gently related to messages, I have something called clear emoji reactions. One of the things inside of Zoom is that if I give you a thumbs up or a hand clap or anything like that, that state lasts for, I think it's 10 seconds, 12 seconds, something like that, and then it goes away. You may want to capture that. So I want to see everybody that gave me a thumbs up. Inside of LiveToAirZ, we'll remember that, even though it has been removed, like it's sort of faded off over time because the 10-second or 12-second fade out for the emoticon, for the reaction is there. We'll remember it. But once that's done, we can just go and say, oh, now clear all the reactions, and we'll go and start over. So again, it gives you a really easy way to create those types of engagement opportunities where you want to work with, react, filter based on, how your participants are engaging. And from that, you can then sort of clear it out and reset yourself to go back. So segment to segment, question to question, however you'd want to do that. So I think here at sort of a high level, that covered everything that's in this first release of LiveToAirZ. We do, because I did mention it, we do have everything exported in, you can send it out as JSON data, you can send it out as XML data, so however you want to integrate, externally. So all that state information we talked about is just available. That's right under the About tab, and you can just put that out. But that's really everything, in the product right now. And we do have plans for some more stuff, and we're always very interested in feedback from everyone here on things that would make this better for them and ways that they could better integrate Zoom into the types of productions they're doing. All right, so I guess at this point, why don't we go and see what we have a few more comments in here. So Chandra, nice. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, Chandra. So David's saying, is the participant link for the live show a WebRTC link, or does LiveToAirZ still leverage Zoom as WebRTC as well? So no, everything that we're doing here is all based around Zoom. So this does not involve WebRTC or any of those elements. So we have this as sort of a distinct product from our traditional LiveToAir product. And it really doesn't now depend on guests having anything special, either, from an install point of view, they use the standard Zoom meeting. But more importantly, this will work well for people in the corporate space that are like, yeah, we have all the firewall permissions for Zoom and we don't have to deal with that. That means that it's simpler for you on the production side. You're not dealing with IT issues the same way, and you're not going to deal with people that are guests being unfamiliar. So hopefully that answers that. So which permission does this use, and does it work in a breakout room? So as far as I know, we haven't tested this with breakout rooms, so I can't really give you a solid answer on that. But if you had specific use cases, please just reach out to us. You can send something to me through our support. So support@nural.com if you had specific things. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by which permission does this use, but this is coming in as a guest, and we do have to get recording permission because we are effectively acting as a recorder just to stream. So this is all things that, every guest will come back and say, are you okay? This will be recorded. and they have to acknowledge that. So I'm not sure that really is answering your question specifically. On the permission side, you may have meant something else, but you don't have to be host to do this. You just have to be an invitee, but it will emulate a recording in terms of how Zoom views permissions and security, and everybody will be queried to allow that to happen. Are we able to come on as a guest and pull in their ISO audio, or are we limited to the Zoom security that's imposed on vMix? So there's no real limitations. These are coming in as SDI or NDI feeds with distinct video and distinct audio for each guest channel coming out. So there are no limitations on ISO audio. You can handle each one of them as, if you're using Dante, you could do 32 audio, individual audio feeds coming out, one for each guest and other things you want. And, then process that, mix that, have an A1 position that could actually go and sort of ride everything for the production. And the thing here is that it is associated with the channel. So as you send something out a specific channel, that channel has its own audio and video feeds coming out. So as you switch guests, there's nothing that you need to do special. That rides with the channel that you have set up. Can we identify guest speakers easily out of hundreds of participants? That's a fair question. Let me sort of switch back to the main screen here. This might make it. We do have the ability to come up here and filter users. So if I was looking for somebody named Sean, if that's what you knew, I could just type that in, and you see that it just went down and showed just Sean in here. You have the ability to do things that are going to be based on hand raise and other types of reactions. So if you're trying to filter through guests in that model, that would work as well. We have talked about doing a distinct interface for large production meetings where you're going to have many, many guests, and you may want to do things where you could sort of highlight and say, I want to pin these guests because these are guests I'm going to be able to work with, and I want to bring up. We've talked about a lot of stuff. It's not in this initial version, but this is feedback we'd really love to get, because right now the two main ways of interacting are going to be through searching based on name, searching based on reaction. But in the messages, we also have the ability to filter messages by those same types of reactions, as well as looking for text inside of messages. And one of the things you'll see, so if you're looking for people that may have said, gee, I have a message about, AI responsibilities. If you found that person, when you see the message that will show up here, what you can end up with is you'll see the names of people. And you could then use that, sort of just pop back and go in and do, search for a name to get that person if you wanted to assign them to a channel. A lot of stuff we've talked about for future versions, but those are the main ways we'd have now for you to deal with sort of that scale of the number of participants. Okay. So Bill, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're finding what we're doing is interesting this season. So thank you, Bill. So are the guest audience messages able to be sent to vMix lower thirds? So all of the messages that we have set up here are, there's two. The messages that LiveToAirZ sends, we don't actually post those as messages that you pull into a production, because sort of as the operator, you're not so, mute your microphone, you're on air, you're off air. None of those messages show up. Every other message does. So if anybody posts messages, those messages are visible in the messages screen, and you'll see them. You can filter them, and then you can post them. If I switch over to the vMix screen, let me see if we can pop that over. So over here, I just have all the different ones, but there is a XML messages. So you just do this in Data Source Manager, and you can see I have things like receiver display name, the sender display name, the message content. So all this information is sort of sitting there. And the way we worked with all of this is inside of here. Let me sort of slide down. Just in the title editor, we mapped all that in. So you can see this is the person, and oh, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong screen here, and that's the message here. So that would be how you'd integrate all of this into vMix for lower thirds. So hope that helps. Do we need to be co-hosts? Co-hosts, or can this be done? This can be done just as a participant. If you are a co-host, the only real difference is things like mute, I think, will let you actually physically mute somebody remotely. And you can do that. But by and large, everything that you have here would just be as a participant, which means you don't have to get people's confidential credentials if you're, working with them in like a corporate meeting where they would have their own, corporate Zoom credentials. They may not want to share that. They only have to invite you to the meeting. What if there are restrictions such as registrations? Can we get on with this system? So because you are being invited and you will have that sort of credentialed meeting ID and password, those are combined in sort of the link typically. You can get on with that. If there's another layer of registration, we're just supporting whatever is within the Zoom framework for handling this. So, and I will tell you, we have not at this point. So, I mean, you can sign in. So it's not, let me actually sort of go here and see if yeah. So in the meetings here, right now I'm in here and it says I'm in the meeting, but I believe in additional settings, let's see. I probably can't do it because I'm now in a meeting, but you can actually sign in through sort of a host account and run this as a host or a co-host. But it's, it's basically constrained to the vMix universe of things you can do. All right. So Spatial, hello, good to see you. Thank you for joining. So if the host has authorized recording and if we are a guest, will there be a conflict? So trying to think, when somebody comes in, the host is able to go and say, this is, respond to this for everybody. Every individual that comes in has to agree that they're willing to be recorded. So on that level, I don't think there's going to be a conflict. I think people will know they're being recorded, and one way either they directly acknowledge or they are notified that this is being recorded. So I don't think there'll ever be a technical conflict. People may turn around and say, I don't want to join a meeting because of that. But by and large, I think most people are pretty comfortable with, responding to that type of query. There's probably enough people in Zoom doing it for, meeting transcripts and other things. So, but, definitely if I'm not understanding exactly what you're asking for, always just, post or reach out to us directly. So guys talking, so great. Thank you. So what are the system requirements and the maximum number of SDI outputs? So from a system level, this is not anywhere near as demanding as LiveToAir because a lot of this, infrastructure piece is being done by Zoom, and we're just basically repacking the video and audio streams. So any system that's, a decent powered gaming system should be able to run any number of, guests that you'd want to handle here. Any system from, the last 3 or 4 years would probably be fine for, most, 6, 8, guest types of productions. So it's not a lot of demand there, certainly less than we have in LiveToAir. In terms of the maximum number of SDI outputs, the maximum we've actually put in the box to test is 16. So, which is 2 DeckLink quad cards where, you can set those up. From a practical point of view, I'm not sure that you'd get, you'd be able to get a third in there. Most systems, unless you have a high-end workstation with the PCIe bandwidth, technically to put that in. But we don't put a constraint on it. If the cards are recognized by the system, we will recognize them as individual ports. Okay, can you elaborate on the setup of a Zoom meeting? How does the login work? Do I need Zoom running on another computer? So normally, the way this would work, and the way I have this set up here, is I have Zoom running on another computer right over here. That creates the meeting that we use to run this production. From there, I get an invite. I can send that invite out. LiveToAirZ can take that invite, paste it in, and join that meeting as a participant in the meeting, one of every other participant that joins. And from there, everything else that you saw in today's show, it works normally. So this is a standard Zoom meeting. You may set things up specifically for how you want to run the meeting. So if you want to, set up rules about everybody should come in, they all should be muted. You can do all those things, when you configure a Zoom meeting and set that up to sort of say, default to everybody being muted when they come in, things like that. So you can do all that on the Zoom side, but it's a standard Zoom meeting. So you don't need to do anything special. And the reality is the Zoom meeting doesn't have to be run from here, because when you start that meeting, it's basically being run in the Zoom backend, sort of the cloud-based meeting. So I can connect to that from anywhere. So at a corporation, if people are actually in a corporate center hosting the Zoom meeting, you could just connect as an invited guest and run it as a production remotely and do all of that. So it doesn't have to be sort of co-located either. So, I mean, you also can put Zoom on the same computer. Yeah, I mean, let me just be clear as I'm thinking this. You don't have to keep them, separated. In fact, I'm running Zoom on one computer here. So it's just one big computer, but I've got everything running there. So, it doesn't need a separate computer. All right. Does vMix need a separate login if we are sending over a program feed to the entire meeting? Is this designed just for colons? So vMix is interacting with LiveToAirZ as an audio and video generator, effectively. So LiveToAirZ, in this case, it's taking an audio and video feed from vMix for the off-air return and an audio and video feed from the on-air return. So if you're in like vMix 4K or higher, that would be one of the 4 outputs that you have for that for each of those, one for on-air and one for off-air. Everything going into vMix has nothing to do with vMix's implementation of Zoom. So there's no connection there. vMix isn't connected to the Zoom meeting. I mean, you could if you had other reasons to do that, but it isn't connected to the Zoom meeting. We are working through standard NDI or SDI, Dante audio, back and forth with Zoom, just like camera sources. And the metadata is being pulled into Zoom, and that is actually just sort of host it. It's a HTTP connection to pull that data in. So you can do that as just pull it in as a URL into vMix. So no specific logins are required on the vMix side at all to interact with LiveToAirZ. So good. I mean, I'm glad you find this useful. And as I said, this is our first release, so we are always looking for ways to improve and refine this. Based on everything that I know a lot of you guys have been working with this, in this space with Zoom for quite a while. So please, we are very interested in where you think we could go next with this. So let's see. Randall's saying, I've already tested some kind of recording message was being sent to the host Zoom, but wasn't able to resolve the message. So yeah, I'm not sure specifically why you couldn't, but what will normally happen is people, when they join, will get a message. Well, when people join, the host will see something that says admit them, if you have that as sort of preview. When they're admitted, then the guest will get a message that says, this is being recorded, and you accept that. And that should happen pretty, on a general level, pretty seamlessly. It's just an acceptance on both sides to join the meeting and accept the recording. So if there's something else, you can always just, jump on with us on the support line, and we can certainly walk you through if there's something going on. Any plans for a team version? Right now, no. But the design, when we sort of set this up, was that we could potentially make this more modular and be able to plug in Zoom or Teams or things like that. We're not there yet. I mean, and I don't want to say that this is sort of coming down the pipe anytime soon. We're really just focused on fleshing out everything inside the Zoom space first, but we're definitely interested in Teams as a potential application once we have this framework sort of ironed out for all the functionality that people are going to want, because we think they're going to be very, very similar. Okay, so we've been working on this for about 9 months. So this has been going on for a while. So we probably started, little like early, just before summer last year, started speccing this out and working on it. So this is something that we originally thought maybe we would integrate this as just expanding LiveToAir itself, but we just felt that the whole workflow around it was very, very different. And LiveToAirZ, in our mind, really became something where we said, for all the types of things people want to do, where Zoom would be the strongest remote connectivity strategy for them, how can we produce something that sort of delivers the same quality as LiveToAir within the constraints of the Zoom universe and what the Zoom API will let us do? To be honest, I mean, technically, some of the things that were big challenges. Number one was that we didn't want this to be bound to just a NVIDIA GPU, because we felt in moving into the Zoom space that this was something that we wanted to make accessible to more people who may not have higher end computers, but would still really like to have this capability. So we actually did a massive rewrite over the entire audio and video processing stack from what we have in LiveToAir. And that allowed us to move away from our direct dependency on CUDA and the NVIDIA GPUs, and now allow us to work with NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, both discrete and integrated GPUs. So that was probably, technically the biggest challenge. From the sort of big picture, every time you put out a Zoom app, you need to get approval from Zoom. You know, it's their product, their infrastructure. So you always have in the back of your mind, I want to make sure that, you know, we're investing, you know, at the point we actually submitted it, we were well over half a year of development effort into, you know, doing this. So we wanted to be sure that we had all of the requirements handled that Zoom has, and that they were able to, you know, make, you know, the approval, you know, without a lot of obstacles. And that was, you know, from a business point of view, that was the thing that sort of sat out there in the back of our minds, be like, okay, we got to make sure that we don't just deliver technically, but we match up with everything that's a technical requirement for approval as well. So those are probably the biggest challenges we had technically and sort of from the overall project point of view. So absolutely, Randall. You know, we'd love to get you set up with a demo and see, because you do, Randall does a lot of things that are very interactive with, you know, participants and audience and other things. So I'd love to see what Randall can come up with here. All right. So I guess we're going to call that a wrap for today's show. I appreciate everybody joining, all the questions that are coming in. We're really excited about this, and we look at this as sort of our first step in this space. So we are, as I've mentioned multiple times, very interested in you know, your feedback and different things that you think would make the product even more compelling, more useful, better integrated into your types of productions. So with that as a wrap, why don't we, you know, jump over now to the post show. As usual, we'll be back on for another show in 2 weeks. So I think that's like May 9th, I think it's on the calendar. So we'll be back for our next show in 2 weeks, May 9th. If you can't join us for the post show, I'll see you in 2 weeks. If not, I'll see you in a minute. Take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And welcome to our post show here. So I thank everybody for you know, basically indulging us as we do a clearly you know, product focused show on our own products. But there was a lot of effort that went into this, and you know, we're pretty proud of what we've done here. So this is something we wanted to share. So Josh is asking about if this works for a Zoom event meetings and webinar. As we have not tested it with those, so I'll start out with that. In theory, this should work fine with Zoom webinars. You know, they are using the same interface, but we'd love to work with somebody if they have a webinar compliant license to go and you know, validate things, and if there are things we need to change, we'd love to get that done. We haven't done anything with Zoom events meetings, though. My understanding is that these are all built around the same core infrastructure components, just packaged differently. So again, if there's somebody that has Zoom events, you know, just reach out to us, and we'd love to work with you to make sure. So our Zoom account does not have high bandwidth mode enabled. So that's something that I know that some people do. We do not place any constraints on this. So if your account does, you should inherit that and get all of that, you know, bandwidth available. We are a pro account for what we do here. So this would be, you know, we get up to 720p. So, you know, the video that you saw sort of going out was, you know, 720p. So, you know, that's It's probably, if anybody, does, have high bandwidth mode and wants to try this out and let us, validate that it looked exactly the same for them with their higher bandwidth. But, we've tested everything up to the 720p that we have here, and we haven't heard from anybody that's been betaing this that it's been an issue. Okay, Guy just said it isn't working. So Guy, why don't we reach out to you and see if we can set something up, because we'd love to get that to work with Zoom Webinar. Thanks, Guy. Okay, so that's probably everything. As I said, there's a lot here, and we have been making a lot of changes. So we will be continuing to invest a lot in getting this where we need to. So it's able to join the webinar in LiveToAirZ, just not seeing it appear as an attendee to give recording permission. Okay, so yeah, I mean, Guy, if I'm thinking this may be something where you'd have to promote it to a presenter or something like that, and then maybe that will do that. Not sure. So this could be, something else going on, but happy to work on this, because this would be definitely something we want to make sure works for everybody that wants to use that. But right now, we've only focused this on meetings. So thank you, Guy. I appreciate that. One of the things that, I mean, and we've recognized this in launching this, is that for anybody that was using Zoom ISO, it is a great product, but it is Mac-based. And if you are doing cloud-based productions, getting a Mac cloud instance in AWS has higher costs associated with it. So this should be something that can sort of fit into your normal instance provisioning. So hopefully, this will work well for people that are doing that in that space. And again, we are very open to making changes as we get feedback. So thank you. So Henry is saying you have to be a co-host. So thank you, Henry. All right. So if you have any other questions, please, feel free to just reach out to us. In the show notes, we do have a link. Just sign up for a free trial. Everybody, there is a fairly, strong group of seasoned veterans here that are looking at this. So your feedback collectively, if there's anything that isn't working the way you'd like, or that you find doesn't work in specific situations, please, we'd love you to get back, and we'll work through everything to get this where it needs to be for whatever style of production you do. But right now, love you to try it out and see how it fits for you. Okay, so why don't we call that a wrap? I appreciate everybody and all the time you spent, and for the engagement. There's, this was a great show to have this type of back and forth with everybody. I love that, and really appreciate you making the time. So until 2 weeks, thank you all. Be safe, be well. See you then.